This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Jordan Brannon, welcome to eCoffee with Experts. Good to have you.
So glad to be here, Austin. Thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome. And it's always great to talk to someone who has co-founded an agency and is still running it. They haven't exited. They don't want to. Well, I could be wrong. We're about to get into it. But I'm really curious, how you see your agency in marketing today. I guess, what's the competitive advantage that you really feel like you guys are nailing these days?
Thanks. It's a great question. I think it's one we're always trying to figure out. Coalition Technologies for a long time has been pretty synonymous with excellent e-commerce, digital marketing. Kind of our core practice has always been our SEO and our paid search. Although today with over 250 team members, we cover email and paid social and organic social, a lot of other things. And so for us, the big story has been SEO and the evolutions of SEO of late. Certainly, pay-per-click is also a very dramatically changing practice and place to try and develop some expertise and maintain expertise if you're in our shoes.
Yeah, I saw a report from, I think it was Agency Analytics, that they were surveying agency owners, and organic was, one of the most popular services. And then PPC over the last year has taken a rise. And I don't know if that's just because it's getting harder for paid or getting harder for organic search, or if it's getting easier for PPC and people to offer that.
Yeah, there definitely is a shift that's happening. I do think on some level, SEO is getting harder. I think it is becoming a little more difficult to provide full funnel analytics and analysis, especially because Google is elevating its AI products over traditional search. And certainly there's just a ton of interest in organic rankings inside of prompt responses from ChatGPT and the like. I think pay-per-click on some level feels like a safe haven for some agencies. It's a place you can retreat to. It's a little bit more of a known practice for most of us. I would say it's probably not actually easier these days because of some of the different AI tools that are out there. Max and some of the AI solutions from Meta actually make it a lot harder to be a very capable marketer rather than being, if you go back a year, I think probably if you were a really standout marketer, probably came a little bit more easy to you. But all of these AI tools, which are frankly bad on some level and often obfuscate some of the underlying data and really work in favor of the ad publishers themselves. I think that does the easier narrative is maybe not the right one, but a lot of agencies maybe are following that path.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much to open up on there. You mentioned about LLM visibility, like ChatGPT. Tell me a little bit about how you're seeing AI as a channel for e-commerce.
Great question. It is really an interesting thing to watch. First, you have to look at what the sort of publicity says. So many executives right now are really keen on that prompt ranking. They want to be top of mind inside of an AI's prompt response. But those third-party sort of independently AI platforms like ChatGPT are really owning only a very small portion of the market. And so we are trying to balance that expectation against, hey, Google is still the search gorilla, and it's also just by volume the largest AI search platform. And then we're trying to make sure our customers really understand that AI eventually is going to try and consume that full funnel, and you need to find a way to be relevant as that develops. Just prior to Black Friday, we saw ChatGPT roll out its shopping assistant. A little bit before that, they actually allowed certain brands to offer checkout inside of ChatGPT. And we're going to see a lot more of that, I think, in the coming years. And e-commerce brands really have to be thinking about not only the SEO strategy, but also just their broader strategy with AI operating as a channel and as a marketplace.
Yeah, the Black Friday thing and specific brands getting pulled into ChatGPT is really interesting. And it makes me kind of question, over the last 20, years or whatever, 2.5 decades, 3 decades with SEO, we've been able to kind of figure out how to how to achieve rankings in Google's algorithm. But with AI and with LLMs, a lot of it is coming from, let's call it, reviews, user generated content, listicles, things that are they're more oriented to the end user. I'm curious how you see that, how you see like social proof, like reviews, any user generated content with ecom, like how do you pull that out of clients in order to get ecom products and ecom brands into LLMs?
Yeah, another really good question. A big piece of what you have to be doing is thinking about AIs much like you would have thought about an early Google. They really are emerging systems and processes that haven't quite figured out how to do what they need to profitably at scale. And so a lot of what we're recommending is
Mm,
actually what works for Google is going to be what ChatGPT borrows and does. And we actually see that one of the crazy things, if you've been tracking like what's happening with ChatGPT, it's actually stealing links from Google Shopping and from Google Shopping ads to populate some of those prompt responses. So, but we are telling our clients to make sure they're systematizing
mm.
review gathering, make sure they're also systematizing review distribution. So not only is that review coming in, it's also going out to social channels or other places that might write about their products. And then finally, we're also saying take those reviews and funnel them back into your product feed, into your product description data, because that same content is what is probabilistically guiding ChatGPT in its particular responses. So if it's finding lots of shoe products from across the web that talk about fit and leather and waterproof and comfort, those are the types of things that you have to be covering inside of your product descriptions so that you're that probabilistic recommendation, regardless of who you're competing against.
Yeah, I love the term probabilistic, and I don't think it's used enough because that's all AI is. So it sounds like you have some sort of a system or a flow that takes user feedback or even prompts feedback, we'll call them reviews for now, gathers those in a systematic way, and then have some sort of a way to put that content back into product descriptions, back into product pages, landing pages, so that they are optimized for LLMs. I mean, am I pretty much getting that right? Is it that simple? Like that
That's
path?
again, like if it's going to scale and it's going to work for you, it's got to be simple. And so, yes, we aim for
Yeah.
a post purchase follow up, ask for the review. We look for different forms of engagement just with packaging and what's in the box. We want to see if we can, again, we'll prompt the people, we'll prompt them for that review and see if we can generate that review for them. And then we'll try and feed that
Mm,
review into our descriptions, back into some of our platforms where we're generating content and the teams that we have that are generating content. And that becomes a part of what we're disseminating through different channels.
yeah. I love it. Like you said, if you want it to scale, it's got to be simple. Speaking of generating content, pretty much SEO in the traditional sense has all been like word content. Now, obviously, LLMs are based on language. However, you see Sora, you see the other image generation, video generation models that are coming out, and it's easier than ever to create high quality product marketing assets. How, like, is there a way we can think about generating those sort of visual assets by using prompts that have a better likelihood of being indexed in and being shown in these like large language models or even Google still? Like, are there certain visual assets that work better than others?
Yeah, I would say visual assets that have their own natural channel connection are probably the best ones to invest in, especially for small businesses that previously would have been excluded from some of that opportunity. Great example is YouTube or TikTok. If you think about video first
Mm,
platforms, as an SMB, if you're running a fast
hmm.
fashion brand, there's just a lot of challenges to having short form video created for every one of your garments. So using these different video generation platforms to allow you to participate in those new channels. And again, because LLMs are entity focused, not domain or URL focused, your ability to be present in more places really increases the likelihood of a prompt response ranking in the sense that we would think about an SEO ranking today. So that's the place that I would start. The unboxing content that big brands could afford from influencers, the try on videos, the out for the stroll in the park with my dog sorts of things. all things that, again, as an SMB, you
Mm.
probably couldn't produce, especially at scale. And now you can use AI to help generate and then distribute through these different channels.
Tell me about, well, let me back up. We were at an Ahrefs conference as Digital Web Solutions a couple months ago in San Diego. And I was talking with a gentleman who he told me this term. It was instead of search engine optimization, he was calling it social engine optimization, where his like role, his consultancy was essentially doing, I mean, to break it down to like a 3-year-old level, it's like writing scripts for social media that will get the video to show up in like the For You page on Instagram or, on TikTok. Um, it seems like there's more to just the visual asset. There's also like the scripting and the SEO, if you will, for video assets. I don't know if you have any comments to make on that. Maybe that's not your wheelhouse, but I'm curious if you have anything
Yeah,
to
not
say.
my typical cup of tea. We have a great social team here, but that concept of SEO as search everywhere optimization is certainly growing. That idea that many places have search engines and that creates opportunities for you to do SEO type work is I think really pivotal for SEOs to grasp onto. But yes, you can essentially I don't want to call it game, but game is okay for now, the TikTok algorithm with length of video, type of content, text descriptions, the starting image. And that's true for YouTube and many other platforms as well. And just like you would SEO a particular URL
Hmm,
for Google 2 years ago, you need to be able to SEO a particular video or a particular image asset for social today.
cool. Let's shift gears a little bit into to the agency side of things. You're an agency leader as the president. And I want to know, like, what do you look for when you hire people in? Obviously, you're
Mm.
looking for skill, but there's kind of like the 80-20, and you have two sides. Some people say, I'm only hiring for skill. I don't care if they're, not that fun to work with. We're all remote anyway. And then there are some people that say, I like the attitude first and I can teach the skill. Is there anything like that? Any sort of parameters or like guiding principles that you look for when you're hiring?
We start with a baseline of capability and competency. One of the interesting things we found is that there are many subject matter experts who are incapable of basic communication or team interaction or client interaction. And so part of what we try and establish early is just like, are you a baseline good team member? Can you communicate with others who are remotely? And if so, that allows us to advance. We have a pretty rigorous skills testing process that allows us to put you in a bit of a pecking order when you do apply. And so we know if you are, again, great baseline team member, but maybe more capable or moderately capable. And then what we're evaluating is, can we train and develop you? And that's a little more art than science, but a big part of what we've been successful at is that training post hire and being able to take somebody and help grow their employment. So I think the characteristics I would look for as an agency lead would be, again, that baseline competency. If you're a super specialist in a particular area, great. But chances are you're going to be very limited if I can only use you once a year because you're just such a specialized tool that I can't
Mm,
have you working well with others. And then we look for, again, where do you fit inside of that skill spectrum? And then beyond that, we're looking for how trainable are you? Can we really help you develop as a talent? And if so, that's where we see a good long term fit.
it's a really interesting topic, hiring in 2025, 2026. You mentioned you have a rigorous process for hiring, a skills process, a skills assessment that establishes like this pecking order. I'm curious what you mean by that. Um, is that like a standardized test? Is that like a mock test on, something that you're working on? Do you make them sign NDAs? What does that process look like?
Yeah, we have a standardized test which we rotate frequently because people are often publishing their particular way of addressing the test for a
Mm,
make believe project. We've had people who in the past who have said, well, you're using us for free work. It's 100% made up business. It's 100% made up projects. It is never used. We feel like that'd be a big disrespect to the people who are submitting the tests. We ask them to do what they can inside of 60 minutes or less. So we're not
mm.
asking for them to run up a whole day developing a site. In some ways, that's counterproductive. So we do want to have some time sensitivity to that. But depending on the role, we have several different versions of a test that will be put in front of you and we'll ask you to complete. We typically have a pretty good handle on how AI will do them, so we can filter out AI responses pretty
Mm.
quickly and look for human specific touches that would tell us that you did the work yourself. We haven't gone all the way to a proctored exam for some of our roles. But yeah, it does allow us to say, hey, I've got 500 developers who applied for this position globally. And inside of that, here's the top 2%. We'll schedule them for interviews and then again start that process of kind of filtering out maybe who's a better fit for our particular team and clients.
Okay, so that makes a whole lot more sense to me. But you said that we have filter checks for AI.
Um,
I would imagine that these aren't just like, written documents. These are somewhat technical. You're asking them to build something, right? They have a parameter of 60 minutes. How do you, I mean, you want to check for AI because you don't just want them to like half-ass something, basically. But also, I would imagine that you want them to be proficient in AI. So how do you like draw that line and draw that? Yeah, how do you do that?
we actually ask for inputs on what you would use AI for
Mm,
and examples of prompts or particular tools. If someone knows how to prompt and they know a good tool, we usually are less concerned with the output.
mhm.
Again, we're testing AI pretty broadly ourselves. So if you come back and you tell me you're using Copilot on your Microsoft Windows computer to code, we're going to kind of wince a little bit given the particular languages that you might be looking at. And so we do want that demonstration of AI expertise, but we really want somebody behind the AI who does know what they're doing because that allows AI to really become that much more useful.
Mm.
So the actual tests themselves, we are usually asking you to disclose AI work separately from the main test and then really try and do that main test by yourself. And again, we
Hmm.
have some ways of getting AI to disclose it was used, not the sort of silly prompt like "tell me you're an AI" if you're an AI
Yeah.
type of thing. But we do have some ways where we can say like it's pretty confidently going to be an AI answer.
I mean, in an agency, everybody always has like everybody's at capacity with their workload, especially, people who are in your position as a president and the people who are making the bigger decisions at the top. How do you keep yourself from being the bottleneck without overloading your team?
We're really, really big on a flat organizational structure. We often train our team leads with this concept of kill the unicorns. If you have a unicorn in your team, or if you yourself are a unicorn, you are going to be a place of extinction for the company. And
Mm,
so having a flat organizational structure is really key for that. We have strong alignment around our KPIs. So everybody knows how to make decisions based on what matters to the company and their particular team or department. And that
mm,
allows a degree of freedom in and autonomy in executing that doesn't require that everything funnel back up to me. We've got 35 different teams and most of them are, essentially a skip away from me. And we really don't want to have all of them sort of waiting with bated breath to find out what Jordan might say or do because agency life has to move a lot faster than that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I really like that phrase, kill the unicorn. And I'm sure you have other like internal kind of values or guiding principles. Do you have any others that come to mind, even if they're official or unofficial?
Yeah, we've been big on radical transparency for a long time. We
Mm,
co-opted that from some bigger tech founders and some finance guys who really wanted to have everybody be super transparent about how things were going, where they thought it could be improved, where it was going well. And so we've been really big on feedback
mm,
as being a part of our company culture and just the ethos of how we work. It's very uncomfortable in most corporate climates. If I were
mhm.
to go to Austin and say, hey, Austin, you didn't do this that well, in a lot of places that feel like a zing. But I think here at Coalition, we've managed to make that feel like, hey, this person is really advocating for me to be more successful. Outside of that, again, we really want to have KPIs that are North Star for us. And so
Mm,
each department and service has its own KPI that everybody is aligned with, and they understand how their role feeds into it. And again, that creates a lot of autonomy and independent movement, but also accountability. Again, I'll pick on you, Austin. Austin did this, and it really doesn't make sense for your particular role. It didn't align with what we had as a goal for the team, or it did. Like Austin did this amazing thing, and he bypassed all of our processes and our tools and found a way to get to the goal.
Mm.
that we want to reward and offer some accolades for.
I love that. I love that. The flat organization, I've heard it from other leaders, but it's really hard to master, and it takes a lot of trust in the people, a lot of trust in the skill and speed of communication. Along the terms of, AI, since I was going to ask like what does your hierarchy structure looks like, but you've already answered that for me. So how are you thinking about like entry level roles, or I guess where you would see an entry level role? Like, are you replacing that with AI? Are you bringing people in because you know that a couple years down the road you're going to need to promote someone and you want to do it from within? Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So far, I have yet to see a true demonstration of AI capability where it can really replace someone full stop.
Yeah.
And so it's not to say that we wouldn't be opposed to that in some level, but what we've really emphasized for every one of our team members, even the most junior, is think like a team lead. Think about what happens if I have an AI that can tackle these things really well for me. That
Mhm.
allows you to scale, and that creates a lot more efficiency and productivity. What we have been after is we want to elevate the sales and marketing side of Coalition, where I can bring in endless clients if I have 250 people who are all now acting like they have AIs that make each of them have 5 juniors. Like, all of a sudden, we can do a lot more work and a lot better work for our clients with the same investment that they had before. And so that's really, I think, how we viewed AI. And again, hiring more entry level people, as long as they hit those earlier criteria, is something we're very open to, and we can build a really great career path. All of our senior leadership, including myself, grew up with the company. We've really been committed to promoting from within. And so we try
Mhm.
and create those runways for our team members where available.
Yeah, and I brought that up because it was something I hadn't even thought of until I heard of this podcast where they were discussing the financial like investors, or some sort of like, I don't know, Goldman Sachs or something, or law firms where they have junior partners or like junior associates, whatever, come in, and it's really difficult for them to get jobs these days because of AI replacing anything. But there's this push to not push everything over to AI because, again, yeah, in a decade we will need more senior people, and what are we going to do if nobody
Yep.
was able to get their start?
And I think part of it is also in a lot of places, people want people to be accountable.
Hmm.
And that's especially true for our clients. Our clients aren't going to accept a hallucination as an
Mm,
output of our work. Now, if they had someone in house doing it, they might shrug their shoulders. But as a company, part of the value proposition that we can offer is, hey, you're not going to find hallucinations making their way into the copy and content we're producing. When we produce AI generated visual assets for your brand, you're not going to see weird fingers or eye drift or those black soulless eyes that happen to, or odd things like that, because our design team takes it personally what that output is. And so I do think like that's one of the big things we try and message and evangelize. People want people to be responsible, and they want people who they can put their trust in. They don't really care what's doing most of the work, so long as there is a person that they can come back to, and they feel like that's a place of accountability. You saw this recently. There was the Australian news stories. There was
yeah.
one of the big four accountancies and consulting firms that got sued basically for I don't remember, tens of millions of dollars in crap work, right, being produced by AI.
Mm.
Ultimately, at the end of the day, people are going to be accountable one way or another. And we want to be proactive and positive about that mindset instead of reactionary.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about the Australian news story where they just banned social media for kids under
Yep.
16.
hmm Yep, that's also
That's
a big. Australia's doing a lot these days, but the one I was thinking of was there was it might have been like an environmental impact study for
mm,
one of the big states in Australia, and they hired a U.S. global consulting firm, paid them like $100 million to figure it out, and there was AI slop all the way through. It hallucinated studies, it hallucinated researchers, it just was that typical AI nonsense, and was turned in
yeah.
for like a $15 million paycheck. And so I think there's some lawsuits involved and some voluntary significant refunds on the part of the consultancy. But
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, our small business clients are much more rigorous in their checks than I think the Australian government sounds like.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that, especially, yeah, if you're working with small businesses, small to medium sized businesses, like what they have to offer you in terms of monthly budget, like it's more of a substantial, percentage of their overall budget and overall revenue. I know I'm conscious on time here, but as a leader in an organization with, multi hundreds of people that are under you and that you're building together with, maybe there's just one thing that you can leave us with that you've implemented at Coalition that encourages that sort of like, I guess, that open transparency, that feedback loop. Like, what are the mechanisms that actually get people to talk to each other and be transparent?
Aligning incentives. That's probably the thing I would call out as being most crucial to really succeeding with a globally distributed company,
Mm,
large teams, and essentially a pecking order of different interests that are happening, and even just sometimes some conflicting interests. In the
mm,
agency world, we're familiar with small business clients who, when they write you a big check and they put a lot of trust in you, the handing over the check almost somehow just that moment creates this sense of tension. Like, do I
mhm,
trust you? Do I not trust you? And so we have to get to a point where what's good for them is good for us, is good for our team members. And
mm.
the more a company is able to align their incentives that way, it really creates a lot of positive momentum because, again, I'll pick on you, Austin. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But if Austin is my coworker and Austin is doing something really good, and our incentives are shared and aligned with coalitions and with our clients, all of a sudden, Austin is going to be willing to share what he knows with me. And if I see something or Austin sees something even maybe deficient in my work, Austin will call me out on that because I'm taking money out of his pocket. I'm taking opportunities from him. And so that
Mm,
aligned incentives really does get everybody moving in the same direction.
I love that. Are you specifically talking about the sales side of things, or I mean, obviously there's different incentives for different teams, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's that commission concept, but scale it to every team where you can.
wow.
Commission sales it can be an extraordinary job to be in if you're capable because of those financial incentives for being a better performer than somebody else or being just the best performer you can be.
Hmm.
And that mindset is sadly missing, or sadly, it's just not reinforced across so many roles. And so
Hmm.
we've tried to find ways to create something of a commission mindset for our accounting team and for our copy team and for our project managers and for our developers and for our designers. Because if we can do that well, they're going to be just as excited by our client success as they are about their success. And that alignment really makes us much more impactful as a company.
I like that. I like the idea of that the commission mindset. There's a lot that other teams can learn from sales. From sales,
Mhm.
like everybody is a salesperson in your own way, and yeah, as long as we're aligned. And I especially like that. It sounds like when you mentioned the KPIs are aligned, they all come from like one source of truth, and then everything just funnels in the same direction. Jordan Brannon, where can we find out more about you and Coalition Technologies and whatever other projects you're working on these days?
Yeah, I'm easy to track down on LinkedIn. Certainly, coalitiontechnologies.com is our home space online. We've got a podcast we just recently launched ourselves called Cyber Salve, which is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and also on YouTube. So that's worth a listen. We specifically are trying to deal with those pain points you get from running an e-commerce or digital brand. So we'll probably have to have you come and visit Austin there shortly. But any of those channels are great to locate us.
Awesome. And I hope the audience does go and listen. Like, we're not the only podcast out there. I encourage them to, go dive deeper into your world. So, Jordan, thank you for being here.
Yeah, a pleasure to be on, Austin. Thank you so much.
Cheers.